Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Titi. Every once in a while I get to a point where I absolutely hate my makeup and have to switch a few things up to like it or fall in love with it again, and I feel like I finally re-perfected my base routine. To my deep skin babes, my acne babes, my round-headed babes, this routine is for you, I promise. If you're looking for tips and tricks to elevate your face routine, but also a routine that's perfect and well fit for fall and winter, then keep on watching. So I did already moisturize my face off camera, as well as apply sunscreen off camera. Should I even show this? This looks crazy, but I did go in with the Paula's Choice Barrier Repair Advanced Moisturizer, as well as this Avon Beyond Glow Snail Mucin Complex. And then for sunscreen, I went in with my tried and true. I love this stuff. I haven't picked it up in a minute, but we're back on this now. This is the Murad Environmental Shield Multivitamin Clear Coat Broad Spectrum SPF. Please wear your sunscreen. Is one of the best ways to help prevent and limit dark spots, okay? Okay, and instead of applying lip balm in the middle of this video, I will be applying it now. Praise God. This is the MCO Beauty 2-in-1 lip treatment. This feels so good. Now with the temperatures cooling down and with the products I've been using, it's not every single time that I do my makeup that I wear primer. Typically I do go in with mattifying primer, but as of late it just honestly hasn't been necessary. So instead what I've been doing is going in with a silicone based primer, and I solely focus on the areas where my pores protrude the most. This is the Smashbox, the original photo finish smooth and blur primer. It instantly blurs and smoothens the skin. It works so good on my skin type and works great in this season. I didn't understand initially why the makeup girlies refuse to do their eyebrow routines on camera. It's because it takes forever. It's tedious, it takes too long, it takes up all the storage on my SD card, and I don't even care to edit that. So I'm gonna film a little bits and pieces here and there, but ultimately I will be back with my eyebrows done, and from there I'm going to get into the rest of this routine. A tip, however, for my brows, I love this tip, I always do it. Go in with a setting powder or a blotting powder on your eyebrows before filling them in with a pencil, a pomade, or whatever. This is the Fenty Beauty Invisimatte blotting powder. It looks like this because I actually use it. You want to make sure you're setting your brows with some kind of powder to absorb all those oils, to help with overall application, but to also help your brows last longer. Every time I do this, my brows don't move. Try it out, okay? One thing I've changed about my eyebrows recently is that I don't make them as dark as I typically do. I feel like it brings my makeup looks together so much better as opposed to having like my typical bold brow, which I typically can't help but have because my brows are on the wider side. But going in with a lighter hand and also making sure that I don't go in with too deep of a brown shade has helped so much. As in, even when I go in with super dramatic eyeshadow or just a super bold look in general, it still helps to not have an overly dramatic brow, okay? I'm gonna go ahead and clean them up with concealer. Lately I have been obsessed, okay, with these Fenty Beauty hydrating concealers. Typically I don't like that bright of a concealer underneath my brow, but this is what I've been doing lately. First I go in with the shade 445, which I would say is a concealer that's maybe only 1 to 2 shades lighter than my skin tone, which isn't that bright. And I do like to do this with a flat brush, and with a brighter shade, this is 400 neutral. I like to go in with the same brush and apply this at the arch of my brow to help highlight and bring it out. I never understood the hype around having like a bright concealer underneath your eyebrow arch, but now that I'm doing it, I understand. Next is color corrector. Typically I would only apply color corrector on the darkest portions of my face, so typically they'll be like the size of my nose. Lately what I've been doing that has really changed the game for me, which is a very popular or known tip, but I only just started doing it, and that's going in with orange color corrector underneath my entire under eye. And when I say underneath my under eyes, I don't mean all right here, I mean solely on these portions of my face. My under eyes aren't super dark, but they're still pretty dark, and I noticed that going in with a light concealer over top dark under eyes, once blended, left my under eyes looking patchy and almost gray. So now, on top of applying color corrector on the sides of my nose, and again anywhere else you may have dark spot, and this is the Caliray Hideaway Correcting Concealer. Typically I would go in with this directly underneath my eyes as well, but I recently discovered this stuff. I bought it ages ago, out of sight, out of mind. This stuff, I do recall this being very light in coverage, so if you have super dark under eyes or lids, I don't recommend this product. But if your under eyes are anything like mine or even lighter, then this should do the job. This is the Milani Under Eye Brightener in the shade number 4. I'm gonna allow this sit for a few minutes to get tacky before I blend. To blend, I'll be going in with this dual complexion brush by It Cosmetics, and specifically this detailed concealer side. And to keep as much of that coverage as possible, I like to tap it in place as opposed to swipe tapping and swirling. And to set the corrector in place, but also to further conceal my dark spots, I like to set it with a foundation powder that's either the same color as my skin tone or darker. With a powder puff, I just tap directly in, and as crazy as this looks, I promise it works. I just go in and I press it right over top the color corrector, even underneath my eyes, where I will be going in with a brighter concealer. Ever since I started doing this technique, my under eyes has been nothing but smooth, flawless, and full coverage. Like, you will not see a single blemish, a single ounce of darkness, nothing underneath your eyes if you try this out. And this is the Sephora Micro Smooth Powder in the shade 85 Espresso. All right, so next we have foundation. Typically I would go in with my technique of underpainting, which only requires that I go in with foundation after applying pretty much all my other liquid and cream products. As of late, I have not been doing that, and I have been loving the results, especially with this foundation right here. These are the Urban Decay Face Bond foundations, and I love them so much because you do not have to set these with powder. I have excessively oily skin. If I do not set my foundations, they will quite literally melt off my face within hours of wearing them. But the fact that I can apply these, not set it, go about my day, come home, and the foundation is still intact. Currently, I mix the shades 35 and 37, and together they make for a pretty solid foundation shade match. Applicator makes it super easy to apply directly to the face. And then going in with the MCO Beauty Ultra Lock Makeup Setting Spray, I like to spray this on my brush to dampen it before blending out my foundation. And even though I don't necessarily underpaint anymore, I still do like to primarily focus this on the lower half of my face. I forget I'm filming sometimes, or that a camera is right in front of me, so I have to be like more instead of when I do my makeup. I'm learning, I'm getting the hang of it. It's been a minute. Moving on to bronzer. I've learned that when it comes to bronzing, the lighter the better. I've been going in with much deeper and stronger bronzers and contours, and I feel like it's just been too harsh on my skin. It clashes with my facial features and my face structure. As of late, I still bronze with the same products at that, but I don't go in with nearly as much product that I typically do. Nor do I directly set my cream bronzer with a powder bronzer. It works for some looks, but day to day, not so much. So going in with my angled cream brush, along with the Patrick Ta Cream Contour and Bronzer Duo, I like to dip the brush directly in the cream before applying it directly onto my cheekbone, but also slightly above. And I'm going in with a very light hand, nor am I bringing it too close to my nose. I'm keeping it for the most part in this section of my face right here. And I'm simply patting in place. Typically I would swipe up, but as of late I just feel like it causes the bronzer to overpower my face, which I don't like. Less is definitely more in my case as of now. And then I do like to tap a little bit on my forehead as well. And as opposed to focusing a lot of product all on this portion, I focus the majority of it right here. Another bronzer I've been loving lately is this one by Juvia's Place. This is in the shade Cocoa. With a very gentle hand, I pick it up and apply. It has more warmth than the Patrick Ta bronzer, which I love. Moving on to my favorite part, we have a blush. So this is the e.l.f. Camo Liquid Blush. This is in the shade Suave Mauve. What I like to do is go in first with a lighter blush shade directly behind and slightly above the apples of my cheek. And then going in with a deeper shade, I like to place that right behind. And this is the Amy Colé Cream Multi-Stick in the shade Desert Date. Very rarely do I use cream and liquid blushes together, but since I've been doing it as of late, I love the combination, and I feel like it allows my blush to last longer. So going in with this contour brush by Real Techniques, I'll be using this for blush today. I like to blend out the apples of my cheek first. Ooh, this blush is a lot lighter than I recall. Before I go in and blend out the deeper shade, I like to bring the blush up underneath my eyes and onto my temples. This is not showing up as much as I like, so over top I'm gonna go in with more of Desert Date. But also this NYX Sweet Cheeks in the shade Showgirl. I completely forgot how good this formula is. Like, NYX really ate. Little goes a long way. It's very pigmented and it lasts. Going back in with my cream bronzer brush, I'm going to use this to merge the blush and the bronzer. Here's what we're looking like. Next, concealer. So going back in with the same concealers I use to clean up my brows. A large part of why my makeup has been off is because of the undertones of my concealer. Traditionally I have neutral to golden undertones. I don't know if it's the lack of sun that I've been getting, but lately neutral, true to neutral concealers have been the only concealers working for me at the moment. Anything with gold or too much gold has had my skin looking yellow, okay? yellow. First, I go in with the shade 445. I like to bring this down my nose and under my eyes. I like to make a shape of a triangle. And then going in with the shade 400 neutral, I like to apply this right over top that inner corner. Going back in with the shade 445, I like to apply this down the bridge of my nose, my forehead, the corners of my nose, and my chin. Over top the line I placed on my nose, I'm gonna go in with a stripe of the shade 400 as well. And before blending, I'm going to allow it to sit a little bit. Typically, I'll allow it to sit for upwards of 5 minutes. Lately, that has not been the case. This is the brush I'll be going in with. The name of the brand is called Live. This is their dual brush, and I just love it. This I use for concealer, the other side I use for blush. And for the most part, the concealer on my chin, forehead, and around the sides of my nose, I like to blend in place. And with blending on my forehead, I do like to go back in with my foundation brush and buff out those edges. When blending on my under eyes, I like to blend out the outer portion first, bringing it underneath my eyes towards my temple, and you're gonna get it over top of the blush. That is okay. We're gonna go back in with that blush brush to help merge that line between the concealer and the blush. And then with the brighter concealer, I don't like to bring that too far out because it is brightening. So I like to keep it in this inner smaller triangle of my eye. And then whatever excess product is on the brush is what I like to place on my lids. Going back in with my blush brush, I'm going to gently blend some of that excess product on my cheek. I'm bringing that blush pretty far up. It's not directly underneath your eyes, but it's close. And you can see just how well my under eyes are concealed with the technique that I used underneath to color correct. I am pretty satisfied with this look. Again, I love blush. I've accepted my fate as a blush girl. I love this blush look. I love how high up on my cheek it is. And as of late, I've just been more intentional of bringing my blush closer towards the corner and underneath my eye than I typically would. Because of my round facial structure, my big cheeks, I feel like it just complements my face a lot more. And if your face is on the rounder side like mine, I recommend you do the same technique. Next is our setting powder. The way I set my face is extremely straightforward. I do like to put powder on the cap. I like to pack it and pick it up with a fluffy brush. Right before I blend, I like to pat out all the creases, typically on my lid and underneath my eyes, before I set the places that crease first, before setting my forehead, my chin. And when I set my forehead, I don't like to leave a harsh line of demarcation of where I apply my setting powder. I like to blend and blur out those edges. That way when I go in with my bronzer or my foundation or whatever product on top, that line of demarcation where I place the powder isn't so prominent. It's almost like the line is kind of permanently set onto my face, which I hated the look of. With the same powder, I'm going to set the remainder of my under eye. And then with a more detailed precision brush, this is the Fenty Beauty highlighter brush, I like to set the inner corner of my eye. And then with just a little bit of powder and also with the excess left on the brush, I like to use this to set my bronzer and my blush. For a while, I would just straight set my blush and bronzer with powder blush and bronzer. It makes for a great full glam look, but day to day, it was a lot. It was a lot. And with the same powder on a fluffy brush, I'm going to double set the inner corner of my eye. And I'm not going in with too much because I am going to go in with more brightening powders. Moving on to powder bronzer. Lately, what I've been doing is going in with a more precision fluffy brush to apply my bronzer. Typically, I will go in with one that's fairly large, like, no, I wouldn't. That's way too big. Typically, I would go in with one that's fairly large, and I just felt like it was overpowering my entire look. As of late, I go in with more of a precision angled brush and going in with the same Patrick Ta bronzer, but this time with the powder. I'm going to tap it in place. I'm not going to blend it upwards as I typically do. The same spot where I applied that cream bronzer. I'll also be going in with this Sephora Micro Smooth powder in the shade Sienna. It's very warm, so keep that in mind. I feel like it does a great job at just softening my bronzer look so it doesn't look overly harsh. I do like to go in with my powder brush and just soften those edges. When it comes to bronzing the nose, one thing I never, and what you should stop doing if you've been doing it, is going in with the same shade I used to bronze to contour my nose. Stop stop. I've noticed that going in with a lighter but also a more cool tone shade to my bronzer looks a lot better on the nose. Give Beauty Sales, one of my favorite shades, but you can see better here that this contour shade is a lighter and more cool tone than this bronzer shade. This is what I use on my nose. This is what you should be using on your nose. Something lighter and more cool tone. I'm very simple with the way I contour it. I like to bring it into this divot here and bring it down the bridge of my nose, down to the tip. Okay, I said previously that blush, cream blush was my favorite part. Powder blush is my favorite part because lately I've been making like these blush cocktails where I can't just go in with one blush shade. I go in with multiple, and I feel like that's why I've been loving the way my makeup has been coming out lately. Okay, so for a while I put down mid-tone blushing, which is basically when you go in with a lighter shade on top of your normal blush shade. So you have your concealer, your mid-tone blush, and then your regular blush. That mid-tone blush is essential. It's essential. I don't think I'll ever go back to not mid-tone blushing. It just does something. It just does something to my look, y'all. So first I'm gonna go in with this pale light pink shade. This is by a brand called Caliray. Picking this up with a fluffy brush. I'm going to place this on the apples of my cheek, and I'm going to inch it underneath my eye, primarily underneath this corner of my eye. But I'm also going to apply a good portion of it over top where I put the majority of my blush. Next, I'm going in with another shade. This, have y'all seen? Do y'all recognize this palette? I've had it for so long. I don't think I'll ever get rid of it. I'm sad that they got rid of it, but this is their volume 2 blush palette. I'm gonna go in with this mauve shade that they have right here, and going in with a fluffier brush. This is the Real Technique blush brush. I'm gonna tap right into this blush, dust off the excess, and I'm going to apply this right below where I placed that first blush shade. I don't apply it underneath my eyes where I did the previous shade. I'm going to more so focus this right behind the apples of my cheek, and I'm going to bring it upwards. Next, I'm going to go in with a deeper blush shade. This is the Giorgio Armani Luminous Silk Blush in the shade 60. It's a really pretty purple shade. I'm going to focus this even further below that previous shade I applied, making sure to not bring it too far towards the apples of my cheek. I'm going to focus it almost right on top of this strip where I applied my bronzer. Before going in with a little bit more of that mid-tone blush shade and applying this again where I originally applied. I just feel like this creates the most beautiful gradient of blush. Again, it's a lot of blush. I'm a blush heavy babe and I love it like this. I feel like it just suits my face so much. If you're not, then definitely tone down the amount of blush that you use and maybe go in with lighter shades, but I just feel like this just, I like it. Now to brighten up the inner eye corner of my eye, I'm going to go in with the Charlotte Tilbury pressed powder in the shade number 2. Going back in with the same precision brush by Fenty Beauty. I'm going to place this solely underneath my eye in this inner eye corner. And then going back in with my contour brush, I'm going to clean this up just a little bit. And then going back in with my blush brush that I used to pick up my mid-tone blush, I'm going to buff out the edges one more time. Like, you guys, look! I like it. All right, so next we have highlighter. Every single time I'm going to stand by, Fenty Beauty makes the best highlighters. This is the Kilowatt highlighter in the shade Moscow Mule, and I'm going to mix that with a little bit of the Kilowatt highlighter in the shade Water Brat. One thing that has changed about the way that I apply highlighter is the hand that I use to go in with it. I use a very light hand. One thing about it, I love highlighter, and 2016 or not, I'm going to douse my face in it, but I found that too much highlighter just throws off my face. It just throws off my overall look. So now I do like to go in with a much lighter hand. Cute. Down the bridge of my nail and then on the tip. So y'all, oh my gosh, I got the white line. How long have I been talking with the white line? No, I'm so sad. Never again. What? So before I go in with anything on my lips or my eyes, I do want to set my face with my new favorite setting spray. Hear me out. I saved the info card just so I can be accurate with how I describe this setting spray. This is the Makeup by Mario New Skin Soft Setting Spray. It sets for 16 hours to create a natural lived-in finish infused with hyaluronic acid, vitamin C, and niacinamide, alcohol-free, fragrance-free, butane-free. I don't even know what that is, but it ain't got it. To be honest, when I read that it had hyaluronic acid, I was like, ooh, this is not for me. I have oily skin. I like to avoid things that draw in moisture. But when I tell you, this sets your face in the most flawless way ever. Like, it adds a touch of a satin finish to your face while locking your makeup in place. With this spray, your makeup will not move. I guarantee you. It just helps like all the products melt into your skin. It helps your skin to look more light skin. And again, like, even though it has that hyaluronic acid, which again really deterred me, it keeps my makeup on. Like, I can guarantee the fact that this is truly a setting spray. All right, so the base makeup is complete. I'm gonna head off camera to do my eyes and I'll be back. Dare I say I love the way my makeup came out today. This completes the final look. I absolutely love the outcome and how everything just came together and blended out so well. And I just love even more that it's so fit for the weather. It is nice and warm but bright and fresh. This routine works on so many face shapes, so many skin types, so many brown skin tones. Try it out. Let me know what you think. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like down below, but also leave your comments on what looks and tutorials you'd like to see next. And until next time, bye guys.